So welcome for today's class of mathematics. This is for class 9 mathematics chapter 14 statistics chapter 8 is and exercise 14.1 question number 2. Okay. So today's question is classify the data in question number 1 above has primary or secondary. Okay, so you'll have to refer question number 1 and then you'll have to say whether it is primary or secondary. But before that, let me give you all the definition of what is the primary data and what is the secondary data. Okay, so let us start. So first you can take down the question number 2. Classify the data in question number 1 above as primary or secondary data. Okay. Now this is your question number 2. Okay. And the answer is right over here. Let me give you all. First I will give you all what is the primary data. Okay. What is the primary data? Let us see. Primary data. Write down what is the primary data. Data collected by the investigator herself or himself. Okay, or himself. Take down the definition of what is primary and secondary data. Okay, with a definite object. Definite objective in her or his mind. So first you all can take down the definition. Let me read it towards you all. What is the primary data? Data collected by the investigator herself or himself with a definite objective in her or his mind. Now let us see what is the secondary data. Write down information gathered from a source which already had the information stored. So let me read it towards you all. What is the secondary data? Information gathered from a source which already had the information stored. So in the question number 1, I have already given you all that number of fans in your class. Number of fans in your class is what? It is a primary or secondary. Primary data is what? Data collected by the investigator herself or himself with a definite objective in her or his mind. So it is a primary. So this is nothing but a primary data, right? Primary data. Next, what is given to you all? Number of students in your class. Again, it is a primary data. Because this is a data by investigator herself or himself with a definite object in her or his mind. So, number of students in your class you already know. So, it is a primary data. Primary data. Write down. Okay, next moving towards the third one. Number of cars in a village. Number of cars in a village is a. So the number of cars in a village is what? Primary data. Again a primary data. So write down primary data. Primary data. Okay, next moving towards the next one, that is ration bill of your house. Ration bill of your house is what? Which again it is a primary data. You'll have to only understand the definition of primary data and the secondary data. Okay, so again this is a primary data. Next, class result made by a teacher. Okay, now here the information is gathered from a source which already had the information stored. Okay, then you all make a result, right? So then the teachers are making the result. So what is it? Secondary data. So you'll have to write down secondary data. Secondary data. Next one is what? Election result obtained from television or newspaper. Now this one is what? Is it a primary or the secondary? So again this is a secondary data. So write down secondary data. Next, moving further. Now let us see the seventh one, daily temperature of a city. Is it a primary or a secondary data? This is a primary data, okay? Primary data. Because the investigation should be done for this. Next is what? Literacy rate obtained from educational survey. Okay, literacy rate from an educational survey is a secondary data because the data is already gathered in the source which is already meaning the information is which already has information stored, right? So this is a secondary data. So write down secondary data. Secondary data. So let me now, okay, so you'll have to know only the definition of the primary and secondary data, then this will be easy for you all, okay. So the first one was number of fans, right? Number of fans was in your class was primary data, okay. Next, number of student in your class was a primary data again. Number of cars in a village is primary data. Now ration bill of your house is a primary data. Now class result made by a teacher is your secondary data. Election result obtained from television or newspaper is your secondary data. Okay. Now the seventh one is what? Daily temperature of a city is a primary data. The eighth one is literacy rate obtained from educational surveys, your secondary data. Okay, so I hope you all have understood exercise 14.1 question number 2, that is classify the data in equation 1 above as primary or secondary data. We have already classified. Okay, so I hope you all have understood exercise 1 and 2 both, and thanks for watching. If any doubts, queries, you all can comment below.